Hey guys, welcome to podcast number 7. I hope you're all well. This is take 12 of recording this intro, so fingers crossed this works this time. Anyway, I hope you're all good in the hood. In this podcast then, you're going to listen to interview. I say interview, it's interview / conversation with Shannon Cunningham, a good friend and personal trainer in London. He is of Australian and Irish descent. A fascinating guy, real good character, and yeah, you're gonna hear that in a moment. So if you're one of Shannon's clients or one of his followers, hi, welcome to the podcast. I think you're going to really enjoy it, and if you haven't already, basically what I tend to do is now I'm going to do a few news and announcements, and I promise we will get on to Shannon's conversation in a moment or two. But just a couple of news and announcements then. The first announcement is this podcast is now available on Apple Podcasts. Oh my God, I can't believe it. They've actually approved this podcast. So it's available on iPhone, iPad, HomePod, Apple CarPlay, and available on your desktop via iTunes. So all you've got to do is say, hey Siri, play the podcast, Alex Lewis podcast, and it will come up. There we go. Anyway, very, very strange for me, having started this project, well, the podcast projects, a number of weeks ago, and it's funny how momentum builds. Anyway, the second announcement is that I will be releasing the first of the Problem Gambling podcast series on Sunday the 7th of June at 7 p.m. So if you didn't already know, a few weeks ago I shared my story about gambling addiction. It was pretty emotional. It had a lot of good reaction. A lot of people got in touch with their words of encouragement and support. And so it was apparent that more needed to be done. There were a lot of questions left unanswered. So I've created a problem gambling podcast series. There's going to be 6 episodes released once a week, and I've got interviews lined up. So who have I got? I've got a school teacher. I've got a registered mental health nurse. I've got a former Premier League football player. I've got a trained hypnotherapist. I've got a partner or a woman who was affected from her partner having a gambling addiction, and a bit of a late addition actually, but a fascinating young man who had a gambling addiction has now since set up a clothing brand. So really excited to get that to you, as I say, on the Sunday the 7th of June. And finally, if you haven't already, please do subscribe, give us a like, give us a comment. Obviously subscribe on YouTube. You can subscribe on Spotify, and now you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts. It gives me a kind of little warm, tingly feeling, knowing that I suppose what I'm doing is helping others and it's entertaining you. Anyway, without further ado, here comes the conversation with Shannon. It's about exercise and the benefits of the benefits to you physically and mentally of doing exercise. It was recorded about a week ago on a Sunday morning. I was a little bit tired, so apologies if I'm not very banterous. But Shannon is, as I say, is a brilliant guy, and I think you're going to get a lot of value from it. So without further ado, here is the conversation. Take care, guys, and I will speak to you next week. All right, ta-da. Okay, so joining us on the other end of the line today is one of London's most sought-after personal trainers, with a clientele of A-listers from the arts, the entertainment and the business industries. I'm incredibly privileged to have him on the other end of the line and for him to give up his time today in his very busy schedule. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce the one, the only, Mr. Shannon Cunningham. How are you doing?
Doing really well, mate. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. We did speak about it some time ago, and I knew it was going to happen. And here we are, mate. It's great to be on.
No, thank you for giving up your time. You're very, very you're very kind to do this. So I wondered if perhaps I could just tee up the conversation. And I know we've only got a limited time today to talk, but I just wondered if we could focus the conversation around perhaps the benefits of exercise, about the mental and the physical benefits. But then also perhaps if you could just talk about some practical tips and advice for the listeners that are perhaps lacking motivation, um, to do their workouts. So I just wondered if we could first start off by talking about a little bit about your background and your experience. Perhaps you could talk about your journey, how you got to where you are now.
So in essence, I've basically always loved sport. So going through school, I used to do a lot of competitive running, competitive football, and I was sports person of the year and so forth during school. So I always just enjoyed being in, the areas of health, sport, active lifestyle. So I graduated from school, went to university to study human movement and health education at Sydney University. Um, Funnily enough, one of Australia's most prestigious universities. And I qualified as a physical education teacher. So I basically went on to share my passion for sport in school teaching, secondary education. And whilst being a teacher, I started doing group exercise for adults. And that's when I really discovered my passion for delivering group exercise and fitness classes, to the point that a lot of these people ended up taking me on as their personal trainer. So anyway, I came to a crossroads on that journey of balancing school teaching with my professional fitness work. And about 12 years ago now, I decided to start my own business, which is Shannon Cunningham Personal Training, which has been going strong and has brought me to where I am today.
If it's okay to ask, I mean, please back me away if this is like, breaching confidentiality, but what sort of clients do you see in terms of like their fitness levels? Is it beginners? Is it more advanced? I mean, I guess you just see a variety of people with a different set of objectives.
Absolutely. Great question. And as a part of the service, I basically take people on from all walks of life, be that someone who stopped training for several years due to, having children or busy lifestyle, or whether people, have put on weight and want to take it off, or people who come to me who are fit and strong and healthy, but they want to achieve the next level. So they want a coach, they want a trainer, they want a mentor who will enable them to do that, whether they come to me from a one-to-one training perspective, or whether they more enjoy working out in groups and they get that synergy and that energy that the group exercise provides.
No, definitely. I definitely see the benefits of the group exercise on Zoom, because again, for the listeners that are listening right now, but Shannon, you did like lots of Instagram live workouts at the beginning of lockdown, and they were so great. And to join in with, mostly, was it 30 minutes of high intensity workouts, and then you also did a bit of meditation as well.
Absolutely. So again, as we go down the route of training and fitness and well-being, we have to understand that our wellness and our health come and are achieved in different ways. So I get a lot of a real buzz out of the high intensity exercise, because I love the go hard attitude and pushing the boundaries and pushing the envelope and that type of stuff. But I also understand that there needs to be a time and a place for being still, being centered, having recovery, good for positive mental attitude, hence the angle of breathing, meditation, quality downtime, etc. So I wanted to, when I went live on Instagram, make sure that I was catering for both dimensions, both working out hard, but also having some time to regenerate.
Mm. I mean, it sounds like both are big, uh, big, both are quite important to you in your personal journey. I mean, you spoke about meditation helping you as well, during
Absolutely.
um, perhaps some darker times in your life and whatnot. And I guess obviously exercise in general, we know it produces endorphins and stuff. But I just wondered, like, if you could touch on like your experiences of like the positives of, as I say, the physical aspect, the mental aspect. I don't know if you could just touch on that maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's not rocket science, AGL, that exercise and fitness and being active has numerous benefits for the body, both on a mental, emotional, spiritual and physical level. And a lot of us, train for the aesthetics and the physical side of things where we maybe want to get in shape and we want to have more muscle tone and we want more body confidence. But what I'm also trying to educate and inform people about is all of the additional benefits outside that, be it the mental benefits where it de-stresses you, it clears your mind, it makes you more positive, optimistic, resilient, gives you a brighter outlook, and then everything in tune with that too emotionally. The experience of the exercise giving you a high, making you feel happier, making you feel more elated, upbeat, combating things like depression, which we all experience at times in our life, which often isn't openly spoken about. But the things like the exercise, the training, be it anything from high intensity to riding a bike, to skipping, to boxing, to meditating, allows us to help, balance our mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical, just so we can have a more enjoyable life. I'm very much into quality of life. And I really feel that exercise and training and meditation and that active lifestyle enables one to achieve a better quality of life.
You obviously have to have bags of energy yourself to do the training and to give the training. I mean, do you have any personal tips or practical tips and advice that you could perhaps give the listeners in case they're like lacking motivation? Because I mean, you seem like you're at the top of the game. You're motivating everyone every day. You're inspiring people. You're pushing them to the next level. I mean, the question, I suppose, who's motivating the motivator?
Well, I think I do have sources of motivation that I look to, other trainers, other mentors, other people in my life who are doing well, who are staying motivated, who are leaders, who have passion in their life. But at the end of the day, what I want listeners, AGL, to take away from the podcast is that essentially what I'm teaching and what I'm advising is that fitness and an active lifestyle and wellness and everything is a lifestyle.
Mm.
It's a way of living and it's a way of doing and being, which actually feeds one's own motivation, one's own drive, one's own positivity, and so on and so forth. So it's living that lifestyle where you eat well, you sleep well, you do your exercise, you have downtime, you have balance that actually produces more energy. So the more you do it, the more energetic you become. The more energetic you become, the more passionate you become. The more passionate you become, the more motivated you become. And you end up just in this cycle of exercise, training, eating well, breathing, resting. And that just produces energy. So your new norm becomes a higher level of energy. And just the reverse to that is if you aren't eating well and you aren't sleeping well and you're stressed and you're not exercising and so forth, then you're actually down on energy and you're down on motivation and you're down on, the desire to do things. So
Mm.
it's about looking at it from a practical point of saying, what can I do today, which is going to actually improve my energy, improve my mindset, improve my quality of life, which I just come back to what I said in my previous point. So thinking, okay, I'll schedule the exercise today because I know after I do the exercise, I will feel better. And normally when I feel better, I do better.
And do you find that it's beneficial to people to have a scheduled time, like you said?
I would say a scheduled time which works for them, AGL. You've got someone down the road who wants to exercise at 5 a.m. because that's when they're alive and that's when they first wake up and that's how they start their day. And then you have someone who wants to start their day differently, but likes training at lunchtime because they like to break the morning and afternoon up. And then you have another person who needs a little bit more sleep in the morning, and then they like to get straight into work, but they exercise at the end of the day to kill off any stress, to wear themselves out, to get a bit of a high for the evening. So the idea for the listeners is just to get in the habit of scheduling the exercise 3 to 4 days a week at a time that works for them, but making sure it's in their calendar.
Okay. And what types of exercise would you recommend if it was 3 to 4 times a week? Are we talking like it should be all high intensity? Should it be for short bursts? I mean, have you got any tips and advice about that?
I normally say to people, I'd rather set you up for success and have you commit and execute rather than telling people to do too much and they're overwhelmed and demotivated and then shy away. So I'm encouraging people to do 30 to 45 minutes of exercise 3 to 4 days a week. And often I find a mixture of exercise. So you don't do HIIT training every session. You don't go running every session. You don't do yoga every session. You look at a combination and you tend to do things that you enjoy because that's going to lead to a higher level of adherence and stickability. Because if you say, I like yoga, so I'll do it 2 days a week, you'll tend to continue to do that. So if I said to you, go out and run 10 kilometers 3 days a week and you didn't like running, you wouldn't do it. You'd probably, tell me that you missed the run or something got in the way or what have you. So it's about scheduling it with a nice variety of exercises and doing what you like, even if that's going for your 45-minute walk 2 days a week and getting your steps up.
And I suppose if you had a client, you'd sit down with them at the beginning and kind of go through their likes and dislikes. So I guess in a way you're getting into people's psyches and finding what motivates them and seeing if you can, give them even more of that, I suppose. Like you said, the success is like, let's focus on the positive rather than, cutting people down, as it were. So you very much focus on building them up. Yeah.
Yes. It's the one size does not fit all, AGL. One size does not fit all. The underpants for that person isn't going to necessarily fit, the big boy pants for another person. So we need to, come from a bit of a standpoint here of, looking at perhaps the needs of the individual. If I tell you to swim 4 days a week and you've never been in a pool in your life, probably not going to go swimming.
No, that's true.
If I tell you to go and have a game of tennis and you've played tennis for the last 10 years, you'd probably get out on the tennis court and think you're playing for Wimbledon.
Oh my God. It was only a matter of time before the smile came out. I mean,
you know what I mean?
Such a big beaming smile. It's like radiating through the computer screen.
No, you've tapped into some passion here.
No, it's great. I mean, I think I've only got really one final question, and it's just me being a bit nosy. And I don't know. I read the Sunday Times, and at the back of the Sunday Times magazine insert, there's always like a day in the life, and they just have all sorts of people, actors, musicians, politicians or whatever. And I don't know, it's something that I really enjoy finding out because I'm, I suppose, a little bit nosy. But I just wondered if you could talk us through like an average day in the life of Shannon Cunningham. You know, what does an average day in the life look for you?
So I've got quite a varied lifestyle, actually. So being, a personal trainer and a health coach, I can have sessions at all different times of the day. So I've become very adaptable, but I am very much a planner. So I look at each day individually. So to give you a broad stroke, I'll generally get up quite early. We're talking between 5:30 and 6:30, because I'm a big believer in starting the day early and strong, because I find I get a lot out of the morning. So invariably, I'll start with some meditation, just because I like to wake up and actually connect with myself before I connect with other things.
Mm.
Because as I've gotten more into lifestyle, I've understand it's a lot about taking care of yourself and a lot about, looking after you before you can look after other people. So I'll start with some meditation. Then invariably, I'll have a pint of water, and then I'll have a shower and get ready. Then I'll either have a smoothie, which will really set me up. And I like to put lots of things in the smoothie, from berries to bananas to raw eggs to almond milk to cinnamon to all sorts of nice things to really set me up. Then by that stage, I normally have to go out and do some work, whether it's PT outside in the moment in the park, or I'm doing online sessions. And then on the basis of that, normally it shows up to be about lunchtime. Always have a home cooked lunch. I try and get home for lunch as much as possible, because I enjoy cooking. It's a bit of meditation for me too, to prepare the meal and to sit down. Then normally after that, I'll have a break. I like to have some rest time. I think it's important that people shell out some time in their days where possible for themselves. And because I work in the evening, I normally shell out some downtime for me, be that reading, be that just taking some rest after lunch. Then it normally comes my time to train. So I'll do training afternoon. So I'll get people trained up in the morning. I'll do my training the afternoon, invariably 3, 4, 5 o'clock. And then I'll do a couple more clients in the evening. So my training's done, and it gives me a nice little boost of energy again for my evening work, being the nature of the job I do. And then I like, again, having a bit of downtime in the evening, where I read a little bit, or I just kind of connect a bit socially with people online, just so I feel I've got, had some time for people outside of my workspace. And then again, I like a bit of routine, because I'm getting up quite early, be that 5:30, 6:30. I'm aiming to get into the sack, as you call it in England, for about 10 p.m. I like to tuck up about 10 p.m.-ish.
Yeah.
So it's a nice varied day of different activities. But what I want the listeners to take away too is I'm definitely recommending in there to have 1 or 2 home cooked meals a day, or prepare your food, go healthy, have your exercise in there at least once a day or every other day, and to have some quality downtime for 1 to 2 hours for yourself, without filling the whole day full of other things and you're not really having any you time. So there are a few practicalities that I like people to do. Am I having time during the day for me? Have I scheduled my 30 or 40 minutes exercise today or tomorrow? Am I cooking at home? I'm going to bed at 10, getting up at 5:36. Am I having a minimum of 7 to 8 hours of good sleep a night?
Yeah. I think that's a great place to finish, actually, is just on those practical tips. So, it's been an absolute pleasure, Shannon.
I look forward to it.
For you to join today. I know you're very busy, and as I say, conscious of time. So I don't want to put you out of touch with your next activity on this fine Sunday.
Yes.
I just want to say thank you ever so much for giving up your time for today. And just to remind people that we'll put the links of Shannon's website and Instagram in the links below. But just to remind people, it's of your website and your Instagram and your Zoom sessions as well.
Yes. So first of all, if they want to connect up on Instagram, whether, your listeners have any questions related to the podcast, or whether they want to check out what I'm doing, they'll find me on Instagram at SCPT1. On my Instagram is my website, so they can easily pop over if they want to read up a little bit more about who I am, what my services are, what press I've done, and what I'm about. And lastly, as I'm encouraging people to get into exercise, be that exercise in their own routine or group exercise online, I would highly encourage any of the listeners out there who need a little bit of a boost, who need to get started, who want to get involved in some group online exercise dynamics, to jump in on the Zoom trainings. Most of them are filling up at the moment because of popular demand, which I'm very grateful for, but invariably a space here and there does come available, and I'm always looking for new people to come in. So again, I can be on a fitness journey with them, and we can get them to a better place mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically.
Oh, you are the man. You are the man. You should be on the stage. You should be you should be the prime minister with the level of passion that you give, and the speeches that I could listen to you all day. I could listen to you all day.
Oh, stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
Oh, mate.
You've put a smile on my dial, mate. You've put a smile on the dial.
Oh, my word. Well, I just want to say thanks once again. And that has been amazing. I think the listeners, I think you guys are going to really enjoy listening to it. So Shannon, thank you ever so much for today. And I will see you soon.
Yes, AGL, it's been a pleasure, mate, to connect with you. And it always feels good, as I started at the beginning, to say, I think potentially in January or sometime after that, we're going to do, a podcast, and it was going to happen. And to actually take things from, idle chit chat to action and execution, which, I'm all about, getting people into action. Stop talking about exercising, stop talking about getting started or, achieving a better level of fitness or health or lifestyle, but actually go into the action. And that's what we've done today on the podcast by making this happen. And as I've said to you, it's about the listeners, it's about the people out there. Hopefully they get some value and some benefit about what we've discussed today.
That's the main aim. That's the main aim. I think for me, it's like, if we can just get one person motivated, or one listener from this, and they go, right, I'm going to go off and do some exercise. I think that's the main thing. And I mean, your energy rubs off on, it's just, you are this warm beacon of light. You light up the room with your smile, your energy, your motivation. So no, it's been nothing but a pleasure.
Mate, absolute pleasure. And just on that note, even if you get one person started, and at some point they get another person started, who gets another person started, what we've created here is something I call the processional effect. It's like a domino. You hit one person, they hit another, and it just ripples through, and you become what I call a cause or a force for good. And I hope that we can get that out of the podcast today.
Nice one, Shannon. Nice one. I think we'll leave it there. So thank you ever so much.
Absolute pleasure, my man. Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I hope you enjoyed today's podcast, guys. Don't forget, if you liked it, to give us a thumbs up. Also, I'd love to hear your feedback, positive or otherwise. I'm always looking at ways to improve the channel, so I really appreciate if you've got any advice or tips. Even if it's stuff you're like, yeah, I really like that bit, or you've got the bits that you think, I could improve on that. Love to hear your feedback. If you really like the podcast and you want to be first to hear new content, don't forget to subscribe. Cheers, guys.